Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here just outside of beautiful San Antonio, Texas, where Jeep flew me down here to test drive the brand new 2017 Jeep Compass, but they were kind enough to provide some competing vehicles. Over there is the Hyundai Tucson, the Subaru Crosstrek, and of course, the Kia Sportage. And let's take all four of these for a ride and see how they compare, and that is coming up right now. Alright guys, if it had been me, I probably would have picked a different set of competing vehicles, but this is what Jeep provided, so this is what we shall test. And over here we have the 2017 Sportage EX. This is the front-wheel drive model, which means it's got the four-cylinder that puts out 181 horsepower. It comes in at $31,425, making it one of the more expensive cars here, and it gets a combined MPG of 25. So let's take it for a ride, and let's see how it compares to the new Jeep Compass. Recently, Kia has been on a roll. Their customer satisfaction and their reliability are through the roof, and Kia just builds a high-quality car. And this car feels like it's kind of a hybrid between a German car and an Asian car. And what I mean by that is Peter Schreier, the chief designer for Kia, has designed a car that could be an Audi, a small Audi. It's very linear, everything is very logically laid out, and it drives really well. It's really, even with the smaller engine, peppy, responsive, and this is the kind of car I could almost see going canyon carving. Sure, it doesn't have a direct competitor in the Jeep, at least not with this version, and not the one we're competing against, but you know what? This is a really good car, and I think Kia has come a long way when they redesigned this latest Sportage. If it were my money and I was looking for a car only for the road, I'd probably go with the Kia before I'd pick the Jeep. Now, if you're looking for a car that is an all-arounder, that goes both on-road and off-road, well, let's wait till we get to the next car. Now, in my book, this Subaru definitely competes with the new Jeep Compass, and that's because, well, it's also very much off-road worthy. Now, the one that we'll be test driving has a sticker of 25,683, 26 mpg, and it has a horizontally opposed engine that puts out 148 horsepower. Of course, it being a Subaru, it has a CVT. Let me get this out there right away. For those of you who watch TFL, you know that Subaru is the only company that doesn't loan us cars. So I may be a little biased when it comes to reviewing this, but I did go on the launch of this car, so I am very familiar with the Crosstrek. Let me get the bad out of the way right away. And keep in mind, like I say, I may be somewhat biased. First and foremost, this engine is pokey. And paired with a CVT, it's really pokey. I'm not a fan of CVTs, and I'm certainly not a fan of a car that has the least horsepower out of the entire group that we're reviewing. I also not a big fan of the interior. I think this interior is by far, right now, the oldest, the simplest. Yes, it has paddle shifters. Yes, they've improved the interiors on Subarus, but Subaru interiors always feel like they're one generation behind. All right, there's the bad out of the way. What I do like about this car is that it's kind of the Goldilocks car of the group. It's just the right size. This is a very popular car because it was one of the first small crossovers that was very off-road worthy. So it is a car that competes directly with the Jeep Trailhawk. In terms of driving dynamic, I have a hard time getting past the pokiness of this. We actually couldn't test this car 0 to 60 because our racetrack wasn't long enough. It just didn't have enough speed to make it to the end before we ran out of runway. That's partially due to the fact that it's a boxer, which doesn't have a lot of torque. It also is naturally aspirated, so it doesn't have a turbo. So out of the four cars that we have here, if it were my money, this is not the car that I would buy. Not because Subaru doesn't lend us cars, no, simply because up at a mile above sea level, it simply doesn't have enough horsepower for being, well, for being a lot of fun to drive. All right, now if it were me, instead of this Tucson Eco front-wheel drive, I probably would have preferred to have a Honda HR-V because I think it probably does compete more directly with the Compass. But nevertheless, what we were given, so this is what we will review. This Tucson costs $25,470, 26 mpg. It has a 1.6-liter turbocharged engine that puts out 175 horsepower. And unlike the Subaru, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, this has a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Like I say, Both Kia and Hyundai are very German, and if you think about it, Germans do not put CVTs in any of their cars. None. Alright, I'm sure in the comments you'll find one German car with a CVT, but it's unusual. It's by far the exception, not the rule. To me, this Tucson is the most mature of the four. It has the most room, at least in my opinion. I'm sitting here next to our videographer and I feel like I've got plenty of shoulder room. I feel like I've got plenty of headroom. It is the most family oriented of the group. If I had a family, this is the vehicle I would choose. It is also front wheel drive, so it's not great off-road, but it does have an important card up its sleeve, and that is the 7-speed dual clutch transmission. I do miss the paddle shifters. Subaru has them. This one doesn't. I think the Subaru's paddle shifter should be in this car, whereas this turbocharged engine should be in the Subaru, and perhaps you'd have the best of both worlds. I also love the design of this car. It is very pleasing. It is very simple. It is very elegant. And the driving position and the way that the car composes itself down the road is very German-like. Once again, Kia and Hyundai are building Asian fusion German vehicles, and that is a very good thing. And the reliability is also improving. It's just a hard combination to beat. But let's see what the Jeep brings to the party, because that's the vehicle we'll be driving next. All right, well, let's talk about the Jeep. First and foremost, it starts at about $22,000 if you get the front wheel drive base, and if you get the Limited or the Trailhawk, you can get well into the 30s. There is only one power plant in America, and that is the 2.4 liter multi-air, which puts out 180 horsepower and 170 pound-foot of torque. It is either mated to a 6-speed automatic, or in the case of this Jeep, a 9-speed automatic, the most gears out of any of these vehicles. So let's go take it for a ride and see how this compares to the other 3 cars. One of the benefits of a 9-speed transmission is that it makes a car more fuel efficient. This Trailhawk version of the Compass actually gets 25 mpg, which is right in the ballpark of the other 3 cars. Also, a 9-speed gives you pretty spirited performance. And this multi-air engine sounds really good. I mean, you can hear it. And it is definitely the most off-road worthy of the 4. Now, we are doing off-road review, and you'll certainly want to check that out. But on-road, it's very composed. It feels very solid. It has kind of a matter-of-fact way of getting down the road, which is good. You don't want a car that wanders down the road. Everything is well dampened. The brakes work in a linear fashion. It's a decent, capable, competent car to drive. Now, there are some flies in the ointment. I'm getting a little tired of this IP, especially this huge area of elephant skin. Sure, it's soft, but my gosh, there's a lot of it. I think Jeep needs to up their style a little bit more. I get the kind of the minimalist approach, but it would be nice to have just a little bit more bling on the interior, make it a little bit more fun to look at. Of course, this Trailhawk does have red accents both in the seats and over here in the dashboard, which does give it a little bit of life, but it's black on black on black, and it's a little too black, if you know what I'm talking about. But overall, this is a really good compromise, because when you think about it, to make a vehicle very on-road worthy, you need the exact opposite of what makes it very off-road worthy. So you want stiffer suspension, you want better tires, you want at least grippier tires, you want a lower center of gravity. And this car has all the opposite. It's got taller, it's got less grippy tires because they're more off-road worthy, and it's got a higher center of gravity. So Jeep has done a good job in keeping that kind of traditional Jeep 7-slotted grille goodness and moving it into this small compact crossover segment. Of course, the other thing you guys might be wondering about is reliability. And since we get cars for a week at a time, we really don't do reliability testing, so you'll have to look that up yourself. It's still an open question whether this will have that kind of reliability that many people have come to expect from the Asian brands. It'll take at least a year before we find out, but stay tuned. So So if it were my money, which one would I buy? If I had a young family, there's no doubt I would get the Tucson. It seems to fit that need the best. Now, if I were a golden retriever, there's no doubt that I would get the Subaru Crosstrek. I've heard that dogs love this Subaru. Now, if I were a young man and I wanted a car that I can go canyon carving in over the weekend and take my bike along, then I would certainly get the Sportage. It's the most on-road worthy of all four of these. Now, if I wanted to go to Moab, and if I wanted to go off-road, well, there's no doubt I'd go for the Jeep. This is the most off-road worthy of the four, and it is also a good all-around car. As always, this is Roman. Remember, click up here for more Jeep videos saying thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. I am off to drive. I'm off to drive some more Jeeps, this time off-road. Ciao.